Mirror, something new for you. It's your boy Icon with the What to Watch series, back with another What to Watch series, and we're watching Black Mirror. And I've been watching Black Mirror, which is crazy. I've been watching Black Mirror for I've seen this is season 7, and the first episode that we're going to review here is called Common People. I didn't get put on the Black Mirror in the beginning. One of my friends, you know him, Sean, the true comic book fan. He's the one that put me on the Black Mirror. And when I watched it, the very first episode of it that I watched was the gaming episode with Anthony Mackie. And yeah, and I almost texted him back and I was like, bro, what the hell you got me watching? And, he just said, keep watching it because every episode is different. And there were a lot of episodes that I loved, a lot of episodes that, honestly made me sad. And there are a lot of episodes that pissed me off. But, not because it was a bad episode, but it's because, the outcome pissed me off. And for the most part, I definitely got into the series. Half the Marvel DC cast of actors is in Black Mirror. The one with Haley Atwell was creepy when she paid for a robotic version of her husband. The one with Miley Cyrus, stands out with the toy. The soldier who went overseas and he had something put in his brain to make him think that the people overseas were like monsters and everything. And it's different. It's basically like the story of Black Mirror. It lets you know what happens when technology goes wrong and when technology gets abused. So we're going to talk about this first one. Before we get started, hit that notification bell, like it or subscribe, because we're going to review the entire season of Black Mirror. And the first episode that we're going to review is called Common People. Now, in this particular episode, this one had Tracy Ellis Ross in it. The same Tracy Ellis Ross who went on the Michelle Obama podcast and basically complained about why she can't get a man, which is why, because she said that men her own age, it's hard, and she likes dating younger guys, but they don't stick around. And I'm just like, yes, because men your own age, they're not going to put up with your bullshit. And younger men, they're there for the ride, and then once the ride is over, they hop on to the next roller coaster. But I digress. And Michelle Obama co-signed all that craziness, which I thought was weird. Anyway, but but in this episode, she played a character who was trying to help out a couple. In this particular episode, it was a couple. The wife, she was a teacher, and the husband, I believe he worked in construction. The wife had a tumor in her brain, and they obviously couldn't afford to pay for the surgery. And, the husband, he didn't want his wife to die, so they were trying to come up with different ways, to save, for him to save his wife. Well, they went to Tracy Ellis Ross. She came to them, and she said that the company that she works for has this new technology where they can basically take a scan of her brain. And when they have this computerized scan of her brain, they can cut the tumor out of her brain and come up with a synthetic version to replace the tumor. And the husband, but it was expensive. The husband ended up doing, more shifts at work to try to pay for it. Now, when he was at work, one of his coworkers said that he was watching this thing online where there was a company that lets people go online and basically do dumb shit for money. So if I go on that website, I'm basically like a cam person for that website, and I'll tell everybody, hey, if I do a front flip dive off of a 6-story building into the ocean, who wants to see that? And then people pay me money to do that dumb shit. So the website should have been called Dumb Shit. So, he was telling the guy about it. He was telling his coworker about it. He was like, hey, he's like, people make a lot of money doing this. And the guy was like, I don't want anything to do with that. So he ended up taking extra shifts at work. They paid for the surgery, and they got the synthetic brain part put into his wife's head, and they saved her life. Now, it took a little bit of adjusting for it. And, she ended up going back to school because she was a teacher. And then while she was at school, she was talking to her students. And then one of the students had said something about breakfast. And then all of a sudden, the wife was just like, yes, breakfast. If you want a good wholesome breakfast, try our sugar flakes. They're chalked with fiber. And while she's saying this, I'm an 80s baby. I grew up watching commercials where all of our commercials had cartoons like Sugar Bear, the Rice Krispies and everything. All the cartoons, all the cereals were little cartoons. I'm used to the jingles. So when I was hearing her explaining this, I was just like, this sounds an awful lot like a commercial jingle. And then I said, oh shit, because it's a computerized part of her, and this is before they revealed this, because it's a computerized portion of her brain, I was like, oh shit, they're putting ads into her head. And that's exactly what happened, because since they basically pay, they're not premium members, because they said that the brain implant, there's tiers to this. Tracy Ellis Ross character said there's tiers to this. She said there's a premium package where the premium package allows you to go wherever you want in the world and it's ad free, but you guys run the basic plan and the basic plan has ads into it and it only has a certain range. So now because his wife has this thing in her brain, it doesn't work past the county lines of their, of where they live. And the company is allowed to put ads into her brain, which will then filter out of her mouth, and she doesn't even realize it's happening. I don't see what the point of that was. Even as a company, how do you benefit by having ads come out of another human being's mouth? It's not like that's going to get you to sell more products. If anything, people aren't going to listen to those ads because they're going to think, if a person's talking about, finances on a chalkboard, and all of a sudden they're talking about like comfy mattresses at at a mattress warehouse, people are going to think that's weird. Like nobody's gonna be like, oh, let's do more of it. Like that didn't make sense to me. And then it got to the point where the company was basically scamming them, and they were using her pain. Like the fact that she needed this implant to survive, because without this, she would die, because of the brain tumor. They were using this against them in order to make more money, because they were just like, well, if you pay for the premium package, we'll update it to the point where you won't have ads anymore and your range, can go other places. They ended up paying for the premium package. She ended up working more as a teacher. He ended up taking more shifts, at his job, but then her job got threatened because the ad, once her bosses found out that they were running ads through her, and she was basically talking to kids, she was talking to other, other workers, other coworkers, she was just randomly splurting ads out of her mouth that were being injected into her brain. Her company was like, yo, if you don't get a hold on this, we're going to have to fire you because we can't have you doing this around children. And then it got to the point where she passed out. And then, she passed out. They went back to Tracy Ellis Ross, and they said, yeah, she just needed to reboot because they said that because you guys aren't on our newest plan, the amount of power it takes to run the implant, we need to shut her down from time to time just so we can reboot it and this, that, and the third. But they were like, oh, but we upgraded to the premium plan. And she said, yeah, that's the basic plan now. And then the guy got mad and almost came over the table. And I'm like, see, now they're using their, their pain against them. They're using their hardship against them. And that wasn't right. That wasn't right, because they knew they were going to get money out of them because they were willing to do whatever it takes to survive. So lo and behold, going back to the coworker who showed him about that website where he could earn extra money, what does the husband do? Which is what any man would do, any man who loves his wife and wants to save his family, because they were also trying to have children. He basically ended up going on the website and he started doing dumb shit to make more money. He ended up making more money. He was able to upgrade their package. He was able to upgrade her sensory overload, so she was getting pleasure out of it and everything, because and it was working, but he was basically humiliating himself online. And then they got to a point where they really needed the money because times were times were tough. Because when the guy went on the website to do all this dumb shit, he always wore a mask. Somebody said that they would pay him $500 if he took the mask off. So he took the mask off for the $500 because his anniversary was coming up and he wanted to do something nice for his wife. He took the mask off, and then when he took the mask off, one of his coworkers, I guess, saw that live stream, took a picture of him and posted that picture at work, because I think one of the things he was supposed to do for money, he was supposed to take a giant dildo or something and stick it where the sun don't shine. He had already did something where he put a mouse trap on his tongue. He was just doing dumb shit. He had took his tooth out at one point, but one of his coworkers, I guess, saw him on the stream, took a screenshot of it and posted it in the break room. So then he got mad. He ran up on, because he knew it was the same coworker that, that told him about the website to begin with. So he ran up on him. He was like, yo, why'd you do that? Which is true. He should have got his ass beat. If anything, I would have beat his ass after work, not at work, but he deserved to get fucked up for that, because, you know what I'm saying? That was a private thing. It's you try to humiliate this dude. And then the two of them getting into a scuffle, the kid fell over. And then when he fell over, he got run over by a tractor trailer. And although his death was very, very sad, and he didn't deserve to die, he definitely deserved to get his ass whooped for, for trying to expose him online like that. The company fired him. He lost his job. Eventually, the wife lost her job, and then they couldn't afford, to pay for the service anymore. They couldn't afford to keep it going. So the guy ended up going back on the website to do more stuff to try to get more money. But now money was really tight, and then it got to a point where it was a year later now. Because they couldn't really afford it anymore, his wife was just being turned off for long stretches of time until he can make enough money to reactivate the plan to turn her back on. And when he got enough money to turn her back on, I believe it was her birthday. It was either their anniversary. No, it was their anniversary. It was their anniversary. He was, like I said, he was missing teeth. And then she was like, oh, like I told you not to do that stuff again. But he was just like, no, he's like, you're my wife, blah, blah, blah. And then, the two of them had relations, they celebrated their anniversary. And then that's when the wife told him, she said, look, she said, honestly, she said, it's time for you to turn me off. Because she said that, you're struggling, trying to keep me alive. And she said, honestly, like, I'm ready to go. She said, just do me a favor and just do it in a situation like where my mind is gone. She's like, once I start talking about these ads or when I power down to reboot, she said, you can off me then, because she was like, this is too much. And she said, honestly, she's like, I'm ready to go. And this is the part that was really sad, because when the ad started kicking in, like after the two of them, spent time together, once the ad started kicking in, he basically took a pillow over her face to like suffocate her until she went quietly into the night. And that was really sad, because like I said, like as a husband, like that's your wife. And I know it killed him on the inside to do it. But if you look at it on another aspect, on a different version, they got more time with each other than they were supposed to have, because due to the nature of her tumor, due to the nature of like her brain condition, she was supposed to be gone 2 years ago. I know it's hard, because he's just like, like I wanted more time with her and I'm losing her. And my heart really goes out to him in that situation. But in the realm of like nature, how nature works, don't be sad that you're losing your wife. Be grateful for the extended time with her that you were allowed, because you weren't even supposed to get that much time. Like, that's how I had to look at it to keep from like being like really torn up on the inside. And the ending actually confused me, because after his wife was officially gone, he went into his room, and you saw the computer off into the background. He went to the room and he closed the door. He had like some screwdriver thing in his hand, some pickaxe thing in his hand, and he went in the room and closed the door. And that was how the episode ended. Thank you for tuning in. But when he went in the room, help me out in the chat if you guys saw this. When he went in the room, was he going in the room to remove himself from existence? Or was he going in the room to go back on the computer to do more dumb shit to make money? I was confused as to why because also it's like, if you're going in the room, it's like your wife's gone now. If you're going in the room whether you're going in the room to off yourself or whether you're going in the room to go back on the computer, there was no reason for you to close the door. That was just weird. I was like, why are you closing the door? Like, ain't nobody else in the house. But I'm confused as to whether or not he was going to remove himself from existence or if he was going back on the computer. But that's it. Share your questions, comments, and concerns. Let's talk about this first episode of Black Mirror. I thought it was a good episode. It highlighted how companies and corporations do profit off of people's pain, and how they force people, to do, I mean, ultimately, like, you make choices at the end of the day, but sometimes when you're backed up into a corner and you feel like there's nothing left for you to do, you make certain choices for the greater good of your family, and those choices don't always get appreciated. But like I said, let me know what you think in the comment section down below, like what you think about this particular episode of Black Mirror, and I'll see you guys on the next one when we review another episode of Black Mirror on Netflix. So that was it, guys. So thanks for tuning in. So for this particular episode, like I say, yay, check it out. And for episode 2, for the second episode that we review, I'll see you then. Until then, I'm out this bitch.